So the first principle that God introduces to mankind in creation is the importance of the principle of authority. God did not create authority in order to have dealings with man. It wasn't just because he wanted man to know who was boss. Before God ever created the world, authority was already in place. Now, if this is true, then we ought to see the same principle repeated later on in the Gospels. In other words, when Jesus first begins his ministry, he ought to say something about authority, since God introduced the whole thing with a lesson on authority in Genesis 1. So the earliest of the Gospels is Mark. Comes even before Matthew in the order of when it was written. And so in Mark's Gospel, chapter 1, verse 21, the scripture says, "Then they went to Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath entered the synagogue and taught. And they were astonished at his teaching," speaking of Jesus, "for he taught them as one having authority." He spoke very clearly and with a clear understanding of Scripture, and as a result, he knew what he was talking about. No guesswork. He did not teach as the scribes. Now there was a man in the synagogue with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, "Let us alone." This is a demon-possessed guy. "What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be quiet and come out of him." And when the unclean spirit had convulsed him and cried out with a loud voice, he came out of him. Then they were all amazed, so that they questioned among themselves, saying, "What is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority he commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." Let me tell you what's happening here. The demon in the man knows who Jesus is. He immediately recognizes him, and he knows that he's not from the earth. He knows he's from heaven, and he remembers him from before. And so when he says, "What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth?" it is an accusation. In fact, the angel Gabriel told Mary, the mother of Jesus, that Jesus would be called the Son of the Most High. Go back and read the Gospels and look for that term, Son of the Most High. You're going to find something funny about it. It's only used by demon-possessed people. Jesus, Son of the Most High God, what have we to do with you? It is an accusation. It is someone saying you're not supposed to be here. But Jesus was supposed to be here because he came through the door. The demons came into the earth, but they didn't come through the door. They came as outlaws. They crawled over the wall in the Garden of Eden when they lied to Adam. Jesus came the way you're supposed to come. He came through the womb of a woman. He came through the birth canal. In other words, he's a human. He's 100% God, but he's also 100% human. Therefore, he had the authority that God intended for Adam to begin with. They were accusing him, but he was there speaking both as God and as a man without sin, and he's demonstrating that authority. Came through the birth canal. You C-section babies, I don't know about your authority, but the birth canal people, we have authority. So Jesus ministered in authority. Do a study when you get home this week. This is your assignment. Read Mark's Gospel, chapters 1, 2, and 3, and see if there are any other illustrations of the authority of Jesus in those 3 chapters. There are at least 14. At least 14. And very early on, Mark introduces Jesus as a man of authority. Now, some of them will be a little bit tricky. For instance, it talks about Jesus being tempted and being in the wilderness for 40 days, and it says the wild beasts were with him. That's another statement of his authority. There were at least 3 animals in the wilderness of Judea who could have killed Jesus, but they didn't because he had authority over them and they knew who he was. The donkey colt that he rode into Jerusalem on the day of his presentation to Israel as king behaved like a horse that had been ridden 1,000 times before. He never bucked nor pitched because he knew exactly who was on his back. And so even the trees know who he is, for goodness sake. The fig tree dried up and withered because they knew who it was that was talking to them. Listen to me. He had authority, and it demonstrates that authority.